All right, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to, a third edition of our Natural Beauty podcast with me, Maya, and Elizabeth as your hosts. Hello, with a very, very special guest today, Nurse Huckleberry. Hello. And just welcome in, obviously, in chat. If you have any questions, anything you want to add, please feel free to. We'll do our best to read them out. We'll just see how we do and have a nice chat. Sounds good to everyone? Awesome. So I gather there's a lot of peeps that absolutely already know Nurse Huckleberry and are big fans. But for anyone who doesn't know you yet, I know crazy, would you mind just introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, totally. Hi, I'm Nurse Huckleberry. Government name Shelby. And I've been streaming on Twitch since late 2017. I had a little bit of a break in there of a year and a half, and then with COVID, kind of done variety content before, and then after COVID, my then boyfriend, now husband, we ended up deciding to do a cooking stream together, and over time it has grown and changed and is no longer very much about cooking and very much about comedy. We just get to entertain our corner of Twitch 3 nights a week with a lot of goofy banter and high production value and tasty foods.
That sounds wonderful. I just noticed that there is a little, on the overlay, an issue with one of the texts, but I can't fix it. It's not behaving, so I'm just going to ignore it. So your show
We love a good ignore.
But your show these days, it is a show. It's not just a stream, I'd say. Is quite unique. I've been hyping it up all week that it's, something that if people hadn't seen you yet, they really should go and check it out because it's quite a unique format. So how did that come about?
Honestly, accident. Well, there was some intention. So, basically, so when we first started, my husband Duder, who's in the chat, was not particularly keen about being on camera, but he really enjoyed engaging with chat and chatting, and he likes switching the cameras and stuff. And so when I first started and I was like, okay, I'm going to teach people how to cook, he was like, well, I had done some cooking streams before and it was really difficult because your hands are messy and then you have to push buttons and you're like, this is a lot. And so he's like, well, I'll just change the cameras for you because I don't want to be on camera. And I was like, okay, cool, great. So at first it started, we had 3 webcams that were left over from previous hobby streaming. And then slowly over time, Gearhead Shooter starts picking up more and more cameras and we keep upgrading. And then slowly our back and forth and the switching between cameras is getting better and better. And we start getting people asking, is this live? Is this pre-recorded or is it live? And so we were like, oh, it's live. It's just fully scripted. We just know, we do rehearsals, chat's in on it. Chat is scripted too, and slowly over time, just adding bits and pieces and upgrading things. We went from, at the time, 5 cameras to now 12. And
12 cameras, wow.
12 cameras. And now the format of because it is a relatively regimented format. And it's just kind of been things that we've tried to see what we liked best. King streams are a pain in the butt and they are tiring. And so we spent about 3 hours is about as long as we can last typically before we tucker it out because it's a lot.
It's like a full body workout. Some of the streams, you guys
Totally.
just so much.
I get tired just watching sometimes. I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Oh, it's so
Glad I'm here on the couch.
Because I'm a baby. I only stream like 3.5 hours and I'm tired. But then if I do a gaming stream, because I have a second channel where sometimes play games. Let's be real, I don't really play games, but sometimes play games. And on that, I'll be like, what? It's been 5 hours? What? This is so easy. Because I'm not literally sprinting around my house.
Yeah, the vibe. I mean, it's still very much you. So it still feels very sort of nurse and nerd Huckleberry. But yeah, there's a very different, much more sort of chill vibe.
And honestly, part of the format with the main channel and why it is such a show at this point is in part because I have the second channel. Because we used to have a lot more deeper chats on the main channel. But as we started as it was moving more into kind of a production and not just like casual hang, and it started to, and that was when I shifted from part-time to full-time streaming, was when I made the second channel. Having the second channel where I could have more of like intimate talks and like really like share more of like my personal personality as opposed to my performance personality, kind of helped push the show into a more more of a performance. And then having that second channel just meant that I still got to like feel like a human like me and like have people get to know me personally.
Yeah, I love that. As I say, it still feels very much you in both channels, but yeah, the vibe is definitely very different. And yeah, I can imagine a lot of work goes into the prep for the sort of the main channel. Like how much prep? How many hours do you spend just getting ready for the 3 hours, roughly?
It really depends on the day. Full honesty, last night, I mean, we did actually prep a bit that we didn't end up using, but outside of creation, it's like a trip to the store and then about maybe 20 minutes of us actually setting up for the stream. But it depends because some days where we do like for example, we did last night, I just cooked food. And we had a nice time and we had a great chat and we were chatting, that was fine. But on Tuesday, we were superheroes. And I made our costumes and we made a bunch of alerts and redeems and stuff for that day. And it was probably solid 4 hours of work before the 3 hours. And we definitely didn't give ourselves enough time. Probably could have used 6 hours of prep time for the 3-hour show.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me, but also I possibly would have thought even more. So that I'm guessing you guys got into the rhythm of things and you just know what you're doing these days.
Honestly, I like to let people think that it's a lot harder than it is because for other people who don't have years of practice, it probably is a lot harder.
Yeah.
But we're very good at it now, and we're able to get stuff done really quickly. And also, a lot of it is like in the moment, something, and then playing off of it, and like. Some of the best streams that we've done have been deeply under pressure. It's crunch time and we're just busting out stuff. And a huge part of it is because we embrace the scuff, right? If it's broken, great. Like, that's hilarious. Let's roll with the broken thing. Because a big part about it is if you're upset, then chat will be upset. But if you're not upset and you think it's funny, chat is also gonna think it's funny. So we try to keep that, as a golden rule in the house of like, it's fine.
Yeah.
I think that's cool for sure. Go ahead, Maya. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, at all. I was just saying that is 100%. after chatting to you, we just made some changes to our stream, but you wished me, I hope it goes smoothly. And I immediately said, well, it's not going to, because there are too many changes, but hey, it's going to be fun because, we talked about that. And I loved bringing that to somewhat scary new waters.
Mhm.
And that was, after the chat with you, I just thought, well, let's go with it. Let's see what happens. Yeah, scuff. I see that being used in chat. Yeah.
Hi, Peanut. Yeah, I should probably say hi to the people who are here that are friends of the stream, Gundam and Nine Jack and Peanut and Duder and Laura. And Autumn's here too. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate it.
Well, I have to
Parents
say,
being
yeah, sorry, go on.
Oh, she says the parents being upstairs, being embarrassed, but this is the best part about the superhero episode because we like to have a lot of characters. I mean, that's like the most fun part is getting to have like other characters that we interact with. That's the best. And that just, I don't know, also kind of happened on its own. Eventually, you get bored with just two people. You need more people in there. So
That's sort of what I was going to say. How many people do you get to hear saying, well, on Tuesday we were superheroes? Like that's just, it's just amazing.
very good. You know, we were figuring it out. We had just gotten our powers, okay? So,
Was it good powers, bad powers?
Well, I don't know. Duder could only fly if he flapped like an owl. So, yeah, I guess, you take, let's see. Gosh, it's so crazy too, because like, I know it's only 3 hours long, but like so much will happen sometimes. And I'm like, I don't even remember. People be like, oh, what did you cook? And I'm like, I don't know. They're like, didn't you do that 2 days ago? I'm like, yeah, you think I remember? Like, what are you talking about? Let's see. Eventually we were battling a super tooth,
Yeah, of course.
and right. And of course, we had to use the power of song to destroy the tooth. It's one weakness, sugar. So, in a karaoke style absolute smashdown, I sang the song Sugar. Hey, sugar, sugar, and beat up a tooth and then put it in my pocket. And that's how we went.
I love how logical that actually sounds.
Fun?
Yeah, absolutely. So what is
Did
it
you
about?
know that's how you destroy teeth,
Obviously, yeah, with sugar and put him in your pocket. Yeah. So what is it about streaming that you love, even before sort of this incredible show came about? What is it that you get here or on Twitch that you wouldn't get in another job that makes it just the thing for you?
Well, so I've always worked in public facing jobs. I was a bartender for a long time. And I've enjoyed teaching, and I've enjoyed I always just like working with people in general. And I feel like with streaming, I get to have a broad reach, and that I can meet so many more people than I could just in person. And I don't know, I'm a storyteller, and I like to share stories and ideas, and especially on Twitch. Twitch is a very good format for that, for long form content. And as somebody who, I don't know, I'm very happy to do just really dumb, goofy stuff, and have it be captured live. I think especially doing it live makes it a lot easier for me, because like for a long time, and this is something I'm still working on. For a long, long time, I've struggled with recording content and then editing and having to like make a choice to post it and being like, this is representative of me. But if I'm just live and I'm just talking, then it's happened, and there's nothing I can really do about it. So you got to roll with the punches. And I don't know. I feel like I don't have as much time to be critical of myself. And that's part of why I really enjoy live streaming specifically, but also I like the creative outlet, and I like just, I don't know, bringing people together and having a nice time. And I've been able to build so much community on Twitch, which is not something I ever intended to do or expected. And it's happened, and it's been really awesome. And I feel like it's a rare thing that you just don't find many other places.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Especially your community seems just so involved and just really happy and up for it.
Yeah, and I mean, I always tell people that your community is a reflection of yourself. And so I have worked pretty hard to shape our community, both Duder and I, but also I think, like attracts like in a lot of ways. And I am known to be brash, and to be bold, and to be quite firm in the way that I manage my community. And I think it has really been such an awesome treat to have that brashness be rewarded, because it hasn't always been rewarded in my life. But here on Twitch, people really appreciate it. So I like that.
Well, it was on your the Nerd Huckleberry channel the other day, right? When, you were saying that sometimes people just need to be maybe just a little bit shamed. And immediately to me, that read like that thing. If you go to a pub and you come up to someone and say, hey, you look stupid, well, you're probably going to get punched in the face. Probably. And so you wouldn't say it. Most people wouldn't. So why is it so okay for people to feel like they can say that to anyone online with no provocation, just for fun?
Yeah, I mean, obviously there's the anonymity, and I think people don't. I think part of it is the response that people get a lot of the time is a sharp emotional response, and that's what they're looking for. But it's pretty rare that they're getting a calculated response. And if you're able to offer a calculated response of like, hey, I see what you're doing and it's pretty lame, and you don't like react to it, it's way more upsetting for them, I feel, because like what happened specifically then was somebody came in and they like made some weird comment about sharks by saying that like there was like an uptick in shark attacks, and so should we start like how do we manage the shark populations? And I feel like it's pretty well known that like sharks, most of them are endangered or critically endangered from overfishing of like bycatch and stuff. And so I was like, hey man, like I'm gonna like, maybe you don't know, that's just being inflammatory. Like, you're just being an ass. And whether or not you intend, because then they said something else about like, well, and I was like, I don't know if you actually are unaware, so I'll tell you why it's important. But, and then they're like, oh, well, how about this other dumb and ignorant, like purposefully inflammatory solution? And I was like, look, we're not, like if you want to be an asshole, you can go be an asshole somewhere else. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say that on here.
That's fine.
You can go be a jerk somewhere else. Because like there's plenty of other content for you to watch on this platform, and either you can leave or I can help you leave, but you won't be coming back. So it's up to you. Like they quieted down real quick. And I don't know, it wasn't even a first time chatter. So I have a feeling that they were just like feisty that day. I don't know. Sometimes people have bad days, and I like to kind of give them grace for that, but only so much.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's... Go, Elizabeth.
Oh, I was just going to say, it's just so crazy how brave people can be when they're just typing on a keyboard versus having a conversation in real life. Because I've had some experiences where I've like personally reached out to somebody who's been saying things just through a keyboard, and their tone completely changes once you confront them like face to face on a screen or in real life. It's just, the internet's great, but it also provides sort of this like hiding place for trolls, I guess you would say. But I did like how you said that it also just depends on maybe that person had a bad day, and it's not always just somebody coming in and wanting to cause trouble, I guess. So being empathetic too, I think sometimes can help.
I mean, I don't know. I think also I think being consistent in the way you manage your community
Totally.
makes it, because like if one person does it, like, and you see that you don't want to be called out, you're way less like, you're like, no, I'm having a nice time. Like, no, I'm not, no, I will be nice. Thank you.
Yeah, no, when I said empathetic, I wasn't saying like you shouldn't say anything to the trolls, but I do appreciate how sometimes, you know, if you have a regular person in your community who comes in and then all of a sudden one day comes in with some comment that you're like, whoa, just being able to have that, you know, ability to step back and be like, okay, you're pissing me off in stream right now, but maybe there's something else going on in your life.
hmm No, and I very much will be like, hey, it seems like you're having a bad day. So I'm going to time you out for like a day and we can try again tomorrow. Because clearly we're not in the mood for being nice. And I'm not in the mood for you not being nice. So you can try again some other time. You know, like go to bed. Go to bed. Wake up and we'll try again.
Yeah, as Lily's saying in chat, boundaries are important, definitely. And this is your space, as you said, and you've worked hard to create a community. So, yeah,
Well,
and you've got to be
I think
consistent as well, as you say.
hmm And I think part of the important part with when you're making a community, like some people will, um, you know, when you're thinking about the idea of if somebody's being a jerk, they're not just being mean to you, they're being rude to the entire chat. So even if like you're like, oh, I can handle it, like there are very few people who actually want to watch somebody just be really mean to their favorite streamer, and they don't want to see their favorite streamer upset. And so even if somebody's like giving you money, if it changes your mood, if it changes your tone, that kind of thing, it's not worth it because you have all of the other people who really want to be there and support you and love you. And they're going to have a worse time now also because of that guy, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. Mystical Odyssey. I don't get how streamers read the room when it's all in text. They're interacting with you guys. Rock for being able to do that. Yeah, that's actually a very interesting point. Because I mean, how long have you been streaming in altogether, like full time?
Full time has been 2 years,
Yeah.
just over 2 years, but altogether, about 5 years of streaming.
Do you feel like the experience of doing this and reading chat, maybe watching other streamers, is that what sort of prepared you, how to read the room or how to react? Or is it just something you had and you found, hey, I can really do this. I can really, get things right. I can see when somebody's obviously not being nice or helpful. There are little tweaks to the language that they use in writing. Is that more the experience or just something that you just innately have?
I would say it's a bit of both.
Yeah.
I would say honestly, if you are good at reading tone, and mostly it's kind of reading between the lines, right? Because people will ask a question and they're not asking that question, right? They're bringing attention to something that you maybe don't want them to bring attention to, or trying to shift the topic into some other territory. And I do think that a little bit of perception, but it's also something that you can gain with practice. And there are common themes because trolls typically aren't that smart. And so a lot of times they'll see something work for somebody and then they copy that. And so you have all these trolls that are copying each other and you can kind of pick up on it. I mean, the human brain is really good at pattern recognition. So if you're able to pick up on, oh, here's a consistent thing. And a lot of times for me, it's like I will judge honestly based on what the username is with the message. Like I had somebody come in with the username of Pipe Bomb Maker and they were like, "Can I ask a question?" And I was like, "No. No, absolutely not." Because I know that that's going nowhere good. At a certain point, you're like, nothing good is going to come from the username Pipe Bomb Maker with the ultimate troll question of can I ask a question as a first time chat? Like, absolutely not. And there was, and like, depending on the day, there was one day that happened, and I was like, I'm not, absolutely not. I'm not dealing with this. And I just banned them because I didn't want to deal with it. And you know what? Maybe they were a delightful individual. I personally will never find out, and I don't care. So, you know, if you don't want to be judged by your username, don't choose a crappy username. Like, I
Also, the can I ask a question first time chat. I don't think I've ever been asked that and something positive comes out of it. So, yeah.
Right? No. And I feel like it's a very known troll thing to do. And if the username is bad enough, I'm like, I just don't. No.
It's
don't
just
care.
Yeah, it's just someone hopping on Discord, even just something like that. And you see a certain, and I'm not even going to repeat some of the names we've had. I think no. I think that's a kick. This one is probably just a ban. Yeah, it's just not worth it. And anyone who's just hopped in, who hasn't seen, I'll speak English soon, episode of our podcast, Natural Beauty Ed. That's what's going on today. We've got Elizabeth, my co-host, and we've got an incredibly special guest today, Nurse Huckleberry. So welcome in. If you have been watching for a while, I'm sure you have already, thank you for the shout out. I was going to say, you've already followed. Make sure to catch those shows because they're really awesome. And if you guys have any questions, please do check them in chat as well. But yes, so this might be a horrible question to ask, but best stream and worst stream.
Okay, best stream and worst stream. Okay,
Could be just moments, but yeah.
Worst stream is pretty easy. And now I would say overall it ended up as a positive, but this particular stream was one of the most difficult, stress-inducing, anxiety streams I've ever dealt with. When Guest Star was still called Guest Star and not streamed together and was in beta, Twitch reached out to me and was like, hey, would you mind being in a beta testing program for this new tool? And I was like, yeah. I've never done a collab with multiple people, and especially a collab with people not in person on the main channel before. And this was before I had made my second channel. So, or had I? I don't remember. And I was like, okay, yeah, bet. Like, let's do something fun. So the main show, once we started it's all scripted, we started kind of pushing into this. It's themed as a sitcom, and I was like, how do we keep this fresh? How do we, because sitcoms will get old. And we had already established Bortco as a brand, which Bortco is our parent company. We've got the Bortco channel, we've got Bortco TV, we've got merch from Bortco, including the Burton's Mystery Meal. So all of our stuff comes from Bortco. It's our Acme company. And I was like, what if we hosted other shows? There's other shows on the Bortco channel on this network. How do we host other shows? And them asked me to do this beta testing. I was like, cool, this is a great opportunity. With the features that I had, I should be able to do essentially The Apprentice. But I called it The Internship, and it wasn't like The Apprentice at all. It was just, the idea was borrowed from it. But I did multiple rounds. I had 9 streamers that I had lined up to compete for the one intern spot. And it was groups of 3, and then I would interview them, and then the chat would vote. And then whoever was voted to the top moved on to the last round. And then there was 3 rounds of voting and then the last person. And they got to really clinch their why they deserve to be the intern on the Nurse Huckleberry show. And we were supposed to use Guest Star for it, right? So I go through all this work, and it's 9 people, and it's my first time ever doing a big collab like this. And we have backgrounds, and we have little transition scenes. And I'm in a full dress and heels, and I'm doing the thing, and everything broke. everything in a way that I could not possibly describe. Basically, so what we found out later, after they told us it was our fault, what we found out later was that Amazon had actually updated their their streaming service, essentially, like the program that they use to stream IVS or whatever it's called. So they had updated that, but didn't tell Twitch. And the way it was updated broke guest star beyond recognition. So we were having like lag issues with our first round of guests. And we were like, okay, lag issues, not great, whatever. We're trying to get it fixed, trying to get it sorted. And I guess what was happening was basically guest star was like, lag, we need more bandwidth. And so it just kept like requesting more and more bandwidth. And suddenly we basically got blue screened. We got fully like locked out. We couldn't click on anything, had to manually turn off the PC with the button, like hard reset. And we're freaking out because I've got so much stuff planned. It's my first big collab and I put way too much in it. Like it was too many people. And I'm freaking out. We're trying to get this sorted. Like the chat's like, and we're like, what is going on? Turns out, unbeknownst to us, while we're soft lock out of the PC, guest star was still sending our audio to the contestants.
Oh
and
no!
So the contestants and their chats are getting us being like, the F happened, and freaking out, you know, screaming our social security numbers and full names and stuff. And no, I'm kidding. So it's like sending our info to them. And so in the middle, we have to stop. We have to completely switch to Discord, which we had not planned on. So we had to remake all of our scenes with like pulling from Discord now. And every time somebody joined or left the call, it would get all messed up. And so we're trying to do that. We're trying to get everything fixed. But because we didn't have it set up for Discord, something was like going wrong. We didn't have the audio set up correctly, and we have a confusing audio setup because we use wireless in-ear monitors and wireless mics. And so everything's going through the mixer and it causes extra problems. Well, we didn't have a good way of actually sending our audio without it sending the contestants' audio also back to them. So everyone was being speech jammed. And then what we ended up having to do, where I was like using my phone to talk to the contestants so that way they weren't being speech jammed, but because I had to have their audio in my headphones, I was being speech jammed the whole time, but at least it was just me. But I was speech jammed for like 30 minutes.
Holy smokes. When you say everything broke, everything broke.
Everything broke. And so I was speech jammed for like 30 plus minutes. I'm just like almost in tears, just trying to get through it. And we finally figured part of it's like when you're in the middle of everything and you're live and you don't think about every little like thing that you can do. Eventually we realized we could mute me on the desktop and then it would fix. But it was absolutely terrifying and horrible, and my very first big collab, and we finished it, and I had the worst migraine I've ever had. And I don't even remember what I cooked for food. I think, we were craft services, so I think I just made like sandwiches or something. And it was terrible. It was one of the single worst streaming experiences I have ever had. And I've been like hate rated in the past. But I would say mostly because I put so much work into it, and to have it all crash and burn and everything break, Twitch to be like, it was your fault. And I was like, because I did so much testing and they literally had done the update like that, like the night before at like 3 a.m. or whatever. Yeah.
That is absolutely heartbreaking. And you went back to streaming after that?
You know, if people enjoyed the show, I didn't.
Yeah.
I had a bad time. But, you know, there's a certain amount of you keep that in. We were just, I was like, I was crying. I was like, this is the worst ever. That was a bad stream.
Oh.
And then they never streamed again. Just kidding.
Good streams.
She lived to tell the
Best
tale.
streams.
Yeah.
Where do how do you pick? How do you pick a best stream? I mean, best stream in recent history, and I know that this is probably going to be a surprise, but on election night, I would say was one of the funniest streams we've done in a long time. It was just ridiculous. I loved what we ended up doing on election night. I thought it was so, so good. And part of it was a challenge of that, and the Borko Bros, the last Borko Bros was really funny. So on election night, we were like, how do we keep everyone from talking about the election? How do we just election talk? What could we do? Because at first I was like, oh, well, should we do something themed around the election? And then as it was actually approaching, I was like, this doesn't sound very fun at all. And so, and we keep things very, we don't talk politics. And then not because I don't want to talk politics, because I do, but because it's just not the space for it. People are coming to my channel to have fun and to escape from the day-to-day and to just not have to think about the stresses of the world and instead just watch two people act like goofs, you know? So we avoid politics heavily. And for election night, I was like, what do we do that's going to keep everybody's mind off of this? And in my dance class, there was a girl, and it was her birthday on election night, and everybody felt really bad. And we were all like, oh, like, happy birthday. Like, hope it's good. And I was like, who in the cast doesn't have a birthday yet? Because it would be so rude to talk about the election on their birthday. And so that's what we did. I was like, canonically, this person doesn't have a birthday yet. It's their birthday. It was Daphne, who is a renowned cookbook writer, and a mannequin.
Of course.
And
Yep.
so it was like, yeah, of course. So we're like, it's Daphne's birthday. She, as you all very well know, is from a rural part of French Canada, and therefore has odd birthday traditions. So tonight we will be celebrating her birthday and playing lots of rural French Canadian birthday games, which we then had to figure out what games we could play with a mannequin that the mannequin could win consistently, because it's her birthday. And so,
Yeah.
so it was. We did. We came up with quite a, yeah, as you do. Like, what is a game that a mannequin could potentially win?
Standing still.
Which, to be fair, I don't feel like she should have won the obstacle course, but you know, that was my opinion. All right, I do think that maybe she had a little help from chat with the obstacle course win because it was a vote, but seemed unreasonable.
So
I'm a sore loser.
So I'm curious. Obviously, you stream, collaborate with your husband. That's basically my only experience of content creation as well. Literally the only experience for me. How much benefit do you think that brings to your work, really? Whether it's the output, the collaboration, the being able to run something by the other person, and just sometimes, or when you're just not feeling it, there is someone right there, even before the chat, I'm sure they're wonderful and supportive, but sometimes you just need that person that's there as well. So do you find that was a massive benefit? Was it a huge game changer for you?
So I used to stream by myself
Yeah.
before we streamed together.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have that to compare, but also I stream by myself on my second channel often enough. And I'll say there are many benefits to streaming with your partner. For one, if chat's slow, it doesn't matter. You always have somebody to talk to. There's always somebody to, like, as you said, bouncing ideas off of. And especially for us, when, like, energy wise, like, this is my full-time job. I can't just take work off, all the time. And so, like, we have a very strict schedule, like, that we are on for our stream schedule. Like, if we're not live at 10:02, people are freaking out. People are like, is everything okay? And we're like, the stupid, we had to restart the PC. It's fine. Like, but people will be freaking out if we are not live at 10:02 because we go live at 10 o'clock on our regular days. And, like, I think in the past couple of years, typically we've only missed 2, maybe 3 stream days in a year. But, for the main channel streams. Yeah, pre-hugglers get worried. Yeah. And I'd say, because sometimes, like, either I'm tired or Duder's tired, and it's nice that the other person can kind of carry the show for a bit. It makes it a little easier to stay so consistent. It's not just me. I don't have to be the only one providing energy. And it can be really good when things are going sideways a bit, in that, like, you have somebody else that you can, because, like, even if one person is stressed, the other person can be like, it's okay. And that's really nice. We recently switched to both of us being full-time streaming, and that has been a bit of a challenge, just more of because, like, we're trying to figure out our workflow because it's changed, obviously. So we're still working out what's going to be the most ideal workflow for us. But I'm much happier because I was very sad and lonely being home alone all the time. So I like having Duder home all the time. It makes me happy.
Aww.
And because I was a bartender and I worked in very public-facing jobs, and so working from home for 2 years was fun for me. So I was very happy to have Duder home with me. But it's also been one of those where I'm like, wait a minute, hold on. I also got really used to being by myself. Could you go away? Leave me alone so I can work. So it's, I'm like, oh gosh, all these, it's been interesting to figure out how we actually want to work. And some interesting lessons I've learned, and I feel like you may have had this experience too, where before, when I was full-time on the stream and Duder was still working a regular job. And so I had taken on, like, all of the stream stuff. So I was planning all of the things for stream consistently, and I would talk with Duder and, like, we'd run some ideas together, but for the most part, like, I was putting all the stuff together, and I would delegate for him to make certain things if I needed him to make things. And then when we both went to full-time, I was like, great, now we can do this together. And now because, like, Duder sometimes felt a little left out because he'd be like, what are we doing? Like, I don't even know what's going on. I'd be like, great, here's your thing. You're doing this. So I was like, cool, you don't have to feel left out anymore. And this will be great. We'll set up, we can go over everything together. Then it turns out that really slowed down the process.
Yeah.
And made it a lot more difficult. And after a month of, like, I was like, okay, we need to change something, because now, like, not everything needs 2 people's input, because it doesn't necessarily make it better every time, but it does make it take longer every time. And it builds, like, the anxiety of, like, because I'm like, and suddenly I felt like I feel like I was getting so much more stuff done before, and now I'm getting less stuff done. And it took me a minute to figure out that I was like, oh, it's because, like, we're having too much discussion about these things instead of just one person making decisions and having discussion where it's needed, as opposed to discussing each individual item. Like, we can still delegate and prioritize. And so now I'm like, okay, you're gonna manage more of the YouTube and kind of like making stuff for social media posts. And then I'll still handle the bulk of the stream stuff because that's what I've been doing. So I'm already good at that. So like, let's not mess that up. Right. And then, you know, it gives times that we can like give support. But also if Duder has a great idea for stream, then he can lead that. And, you know, if I have if I want to do something for the YouTube, then I can choose to lead that. But not having to do everything together I feel like that was a lesson we needed to learn.
Yeah, I see Khan, that Khan guy, that's my other half saying sounds familiar. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've worked together for well over a decade on other stuff as well, but it still was a shift, because when there are different things, you start doing things differently. Obviously, entering the whole content creation thing, suddenly, yeah, who's doing what, who's better at that, but not because like, hello, I'm better at this. Just who's going to get it done, who's going to take responsibility for this, making those decisions. Yeah,
and even with things like video editing, like, do I know how to edit a video? Yes. But Duder's better at it. Like, it's faster for him. He's done more video editing over time. And so, like, even if sometimes, like, I have a particular vision for something, we'll tag team it where he does the thing. I'll be like, hey, can you do this, this, and this? And he's like, okay, great. And then he does it because it's still, like, I don't know. I just hate Adobe with, like, all of my might. I just hate it so much. And the way they make things so difficult. And, like, I've gotten, at this point, I would say that now, if it comes to Photoshop, now it's like, okay, I'm the one who does the Photoshop type stuff, but Duder does the video editing type stuff and the audio editing type stuff because he's just better at it. And I honestly just do not have patience for editing. I just can't stand it. And it drives me crazy.
I get the patience thing. Same.
Duder likes it. Yeah, I just don't have the patience for it. It's just, and part of it for me, I never thought that I would end up in video production in the slightest. I never made videos before doing Twitch. It was not like I didn't even have social media outside of Facebook before joining Twitch. I made an Instagram account for Twitch, and same with Twitter, and same with all of my social media. I don't even use Facebook anymore, but like, it was very outside of my wheelhouse to do, like, I don't know, I saw definitely video editing as like, oh, that's scary. Like, I don't know how to do that. Photoshop's like hard. I don't know how to do that, which is a bit stupid. I really probably could have learned those things. I don't know. It was like not something I was interested in. And so now I've been forced to learn all these things. And I'm like, I wasn't interested in this for a reason. I freaking hate this. It's the worst part. I don't know how I unintentionally ended up in a job that's only audio visual issues. And I just am like, okay. It's not for me. But every other part of it makes it worthwhile. So
fair enough. I usually just let Khan do all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But he likes it and he's really good at it. Yeah.
I do.
I ask my partner a tech question. He's like, what? So you're very lucky that you have partners that can, contribute and help out and also have fun with. So that's cool.
Yes. I will say the other side of it, which I don't know if this goes for you too, Maya. The other side of it is Duder is a gearhead. And if you have one person who's a gearhead and the other person who's like, please stop buying things I don't know how to use.
Yeah.
Because Duder will pick up stuff and I'm like, like, we do have a guy for that now. Some equipment that I'm like, I don't know how to use that. Like, I'm not streaming I'm not at the, which honestly this background's way better, so like it's fine. And I should just do this in the future. But normally I'd be at my like stream PC for doing a Discord call. But I don't know how to make the mixer let me have a Discord call. So we're on a different computer.
I love that. Like if an issue arises, I will deal with it. But
Yeah.
sometimes I do get that
Yeah,
look from my
I'm dealing
husband.
with it.
Yeah, exactly. Just
Dealing
go
with it
somewhere
like
else.
this. I guess I'll do something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's go.
Maya, would you like to share what your tech woes were at the start of our Discord call?
Of course. Yes. So I have been having some audio issues with the Razer signups update. So there has been a lot of things sort of popping off, things turning off, and it happened just before the call. I tested it, and I was, oh, come on! I was on call already with these lovely ladies, and I just turned to my husband. I was like, I don't know what's going on, and he just said, like, I don't know. Have you checked all of this yet? Are you plugged in? Of course I'm plugged in. Well, you're not. My headset was literally not plugged in.
That's why we need Khan.
Exactly. I'm going to blame the cat for that. But yeah, that was my tech issue today. So as tech issues go, that was pretty good.
And you know what? Peanut does have a very good point. We do have a really fantastic editor, Eddie Hates Everything, who makes all sorts of really cool stuff for us. Like, and that's part of it, is we have a lot of help. We have a lot of help in our tech in all sorts of, because like attracts like, because we have a high production show, we attract people in production. Go figure. And so we end up with lots of very helpful individuals. Sometimes a lot of competing helpful individuals, but helpful individuals that have really upped the production value of the show and can, there's a certain amount of like making our ideas actually happen that is from the prowess of others, of like, how do we do this? Well, there's a program for that. Sweet. I didn't know about that program, but thankfully you knew. So yeah, I'm talking about you, Brown.
There are some incredible things that either you can find a program for or a little widget in a editing software that you're already using. My husband was just showing me something. He created this board game for our stream, and he was just saying this texture, and it was like, oh, you just use this little tool here, and it just does this. I'm like, that's cool. How on earth are you finding these things that do the specific tiny little thing you had in mind? But okay. I was wondering, why do you think there aren't more scripted shows on Twitch? I mean, people have been saying for years that that's the future of broadcasting, endless possibilities, yada, yada, yada. And we do have a lot of variety on Twitch, similar platforms as well. But it seems that the overwhelming majority of streams do gravitate towards the familiar format. Nothing wrong with that. I'm just curious whether you have an opinion as to why that is, and if you think it might evolve in the future.
Well, all right, I'm going to break a big rule here. Break the fourth wall. It's all improv, not scripted. It's just a joke. Which I don't know if most people should know this. Most people do get most people oftentimes do know. So I do occasionally get questions about like if I know, I'm so sorry, I'm breaking the immersion. From people asking like how we script the show. And I'm like, 9 hours of scripting. It's like we'll joke that it's like down to the minutia, and the chat scripted too. But I would say having done a actually scripted show, in that I was in Romeo and Juliet. Yeah. And that was a scripted production. It is an obscene amount of work. And honestly, I think that the reason people come to Twitch is for personal connection and human interaction. And they are not necessarily coming to Twitch to watch a TV show. And so while TV shows can be broadcast on Twitch, want to watch scripted content because you can watch that on YouTube. And it's going to be edited and probably be a nicer overall package to watch if you're watching something that's scripted. There is the fun aspect of like a live play or something like that, but a lot of times it just takes so much effort to put it on that it's a rare occasion. You can't do it super consistently. I just, I would be really surprised. You also need way more people, and most Twitch channels are just not making enough money to,
Oh yeah.
like, like, the channel was fine supporting one person with like and then the other person with a second income. And now we're like, okay, we had to tighten the belt quite a bit for us to both go full time with the streaming, because now it's two incomes from what was one decent income is now two kind of bit sparse. Sparse for two incomes was decent for one. So, and I just like, when it comes to scripting content, you just can't. For the duration expected on Twitch, because the hard thing with Twitch is, like with YouTube comments, you can watch a YouTube thing any day and you can interact the same with the community. There is something different about things being live and about being in the live chat and people have FOMO when they don't get to be in the live chat. And there's no comments on videos on Twitch. And so you can't interact with that community unless you go into like their Discord or something. And so, especially for something that is going to be regularly scripted, it can't be that long. It's just not reasonable for it to be very long and to expect it to be good. And it can't be as frequent. And most people, they want to see their streamers consistently. They're looking for that consistent hangout, people coming at regular times. And part of it is because with Twitch, the best way to be discovered is when you're live. Like, building a lot of content on other platforms. But even then, getting a follow from Instagram doesn't have the same weight as a follow from Twitch while you're live on Twitch. Because an Instagram follower is less likely to actually come over and watch your Twitch, unless they're deep on Twitch already. And I would say that was probably why it won't happen. It's just too expensive, too labor intensive. And you just can't do it in the volume necessary. And it's hard to build channels on it. I mean, even if you look at like Everything Now Show, which is an improv comedy group, and they do pretty elaborate shows, but they only stream for like 2 hours once a week. And it's tough and there's like 5 or 6 people behind it, and then they'll have guests and stuff, and it's a lot to work on to make it happen. And it's unreasonable to expect that anybody's being really paid from that. I would say that they're probably able to fund the stream itself and that everyone's volunteering their time. I don't know, but I would expect that they would need an absolute viewership in order to actually make it, like, be able to pay everyone involved in a capacity.
Yeah. Okay. We'll put quotation marks around the word scripted. But yeah, I suppose my point is that there aren't many shows like yours, with production value, putting on a show, and combined with that, live, interactive, and improvised element. So, and what you're saying is it is hard, and I can immediately see the truth in that. And people are doing things as cheaply as possible for obvious reasons. But maybe we do need more people to just, go for it, and we'll start to see a bit more of this in the future. I think I'd like that a lot, and Twitch's reputation could benefit as well.
I think so too. I like to, when I'm describing the show to people, I say it's my own Wayne's World. It's my own version of the iCarly show, essentially, where I get to do it live. It's my own Wayne's World. It's not just hanging out and chatting. It's not just, chatting and playing a game. There is definitely more planned content. There's something to be said about a show having a formula to it, in that we do kind of the same thing consistently. So we hit beats in the show. And I think that would be something, because I would describe it honestly as more of a variety show than anything. And I could see more variety type content. Like I would love to see other people do stuff like we do. And I think something that we try to make clear, and especially with the embracing of the scuff, as we like to say, is that anyone could do this. We're not actually using anything that's like particularly special. We've amassed a lot of equipment over the years, but in reality, if you had 3 cameras, to be very good, you can do this with just OBS, because we used to do it with just OBS. You could just do it very simply and still put on a good show and still have a lot of fun effects, because like, I don't know, I think in general, we have lost the power of imagination a lot of times as adults. And I think there's something really special in engaging in play. And when you're in a play state, you just have more fun. And you can just, like, for example, our character Otto, people love Otto. Otto is such an absolute treasure. And the fact that everyone feels this way about this little shark puppet, and that they care about him so much, and that it has become a real character, not just from, you know, our input, but from the chat's input and the love that they have for Otto. It really gives people a chance to play in a way that you don't normally get. And I think that it's really important to offer those opportunities to adults in an adult setting, and that feels like an adult thing, but like we all get to go with our, you know, run with our imaginations a little bit and participate in this pretend, because I know that I feel like Otto is a real person. And Duder will sometimes, when we're not live, be like, man, I wish Otto was here. And I'm like, he's like, no, I love Otto so much, though. I wish he was here because I want to know what he thinks.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, it's silly, but it's supposed to be silly. We need silly sometimes. Yeah, I couldn't imagine my life without that. And the bringing that to others, you know, through stream, and that's just incredible. And the wording we used in the little poster advertising the stream, you know, that it was innovation in broadcasting, and that's how I'm viewing your show. I think it's something really special, something that nobody does because it is hard, or not many people do anyway. Well, I've never seen anyone do it, so yeah. But it is so entertaining, but in just such a, like, it is structured in a way, but then you always do something else, something new, and it's just so engaging every second of it. And I'm not even sure how you get through I don't know, 3 hours. I feel like I'd be asleep within one.
It blows by. It goes so fast. It blows by. I think, especially as we started pushing into more interesting, more character, more, you know, more of the banter, and it really becoming more of a comedy show, I had a turning point where I kind of realized, and this is the Natural Beauty Podcast, so I'm going to talk about beauty a little bit. I used to like really check in the camera and make sure I was looking good. And not just looking good, but like I didn't want to have a double chin. I didn't, you know, I wanted to make sure it was like a flattering angle, or that I wasn't making like too dumb of a face, or this, that, and the other. Like relaxed a bit. And at one point I started like I did something and I made a really dumb face, and I was like, you know, I did something, whatever, and I got a really positive chat reaction. They thought it was funny, and it was like, I was like, oh, and then I was just kind of like at a certain point testing the waters, and then I suddenly was just like, why am I trying so hard to look pretty when I could still be pretty and be much funnier if I wasn't so focused on making sure that I was looking good, whatever good is. In full honesty, like it was a matter of gaining confidence, of being like, you know, it doesn't matter what if I pull a dumb face for 1 second, that doesn't mean that's what my face looks like for the rest of eternity. And I was just, concerned that like sometimes it feels so permanent, and that like, well, there's video of me looking like this, you know, and now I couldn't care less, but there's still other things that I've slowly over time I've had to like basically through exposure therapy just kind of get over, and has led to me being kind of stronger and better. And I think that's one of the things that comes as a big risk when you're doing a live production like this, to be open to the idea of failure, because the more moving parts you have, the more complicated things are, the more things you have planned, the more likely you're able to have stuff fail. Because if you don't plan anything and you're just hanging out chatting and you're just playing a game, the likelihood of things going wrong is pretty low. But when you try to build hype about something, when you have all these assets and maybe something gets broken or something gets lost, you can have these like personal roadblocks that keep you from doing more, because more is scary, because more comes with risk. And I think we need to get past that, because fear of failure stops a lot of people from trying. And the thing is failure is, especially on the internet, high quality content loves when you fail. They love it. And the big thing is it depends on how you approach that failure. Something goes wrong and you're like, this is the worst day ever and I'm having a terrible time, and you're genuinely angry or upset, be like, oh, like, well, that broke. Okay, let's see what we can do. And then you roll with it. You roll with the thing that's broken. You make fun of it. You say like, okay, well, my camera's broken. Here's a picture of a capybara to look at while I try and fix that. There you go. And if you're able to roll with the punches and realize that, like, as long as if you take that failure in stride and you celebrate it and you milk that failure for all it's worth, so will chat. And chat's going to have a way better time than if you got angry because of failure. And I think it's a hard shift, because people, like when you put effort and work into something, it hurts your heart when it doesn't go right. And even for me, sometimes I still have like a bit of heartache when things go really wrong, because I'm a bit bummed. But the big secret, I just don't tell people what's planned, because if I never get to it, then they don't know, and I'm the only person who's disappointed. So
yeah, it's like when at dinner parties, I run a cookery school. That's sort of my other thing. Whenever we're making things like chocolate souffle, I just say, look, just don't tell people what it is, and then you can always say it's a lava cake if it didn't rise. Like, who cares? Who's going to know? It's going to be delicious. So don't stress about it. Chances are it's going to be absolutely perfect, but just don't say what it is ahead of time. But there's some hey Zoom, great comments. Embrace the face. People are bad at games on purpose. It's a thing. Yeah, I mostly play games on my stream, and I don't do it on purpose, but I fail, and I just try and fail as spectacularly as I can. I think that's something that Nurse, you said to me specifically, that wording, and I thought, yeah. Mm-hmm. And with my, like, whenever I say, hey, what can go wrong? It always goes wrong. Well, that's just my luck, but yeah. And the getting angry thing is, aw.
I mean, I think the biggest part is that chat feeds off of your energy. And if your energy is positive about it and you're able to make light of the situation, then everyone can make light of the situation. But if you are tense and frustrated and like, even if you're trying to remain calm, it will kill the mood, and it's hard to come back from that. And especially like, I don't know, I think there's something to be said about consistency also, consistency in how you manage your community, consistency in how you manage yourself. And like, I feel like we all know someone where everything's great when it's great, and if things aren't great, you really don't want to be around that person. And so be nervous about things going wrong. Like if you're around someone and like they're consistently like on a stressful day, they're just like the worst person to be around, but they also like to make themselves have stressful days. This is my dad. They like to make themselves have stressful days, and then they and then everything goes wrong, and it's definitely going to go wrong. And if everything was going right, you'd be waiting for the other shoe to drop of like, okay, when is everything going to go wrong? And I think that, chat also feels that from streamers where like, if you catch someone on a really great day and then you're like, oh, this person's super great. And you catch them on 2 or 3 great days and you catch them on one bad day and you're like, whoa. Yikes. And like we all have bad days. And that's what I was saying before about giving people grace about having a bad day. But there is a certain amount of like, if you're wanting to do streaming as a career, being able to move past the fear of failure can really, really help, I think.
Well, we're getting some real awesome life advice here as well. I like it. I got to ask, Otto. So where does Otto come from? What's the evolution of Otto?
Well, we ran into Otto at Dave and Buster's, hanging out in the prize bin with some of the other sharks, but he really stood out to us personally. Otto actually had a friend named Jerome. Jerome was the first shark on the show, but Jerome had the voice of a smoker. It was not particularly sustainable. So Jerome, unfortunately, was not cast on the show. A raid.
Oh, hey, Skinny, hey, community. Well, welcome in, guys. This is part of our Natural Beauty podcast with Elizabeth and me as the co-host, but we have a very, very special guest today, Nurse Huckleberry, talking to us about, live streaming and just being authentically yourself. I think that's what we're getting, and it's awesome. And right now we are discussing the history of Otto. A wonderful...
And then, so Jerome didn't make the cut. Bummer for Jerome. But Otto, man, he really had what we were looking for. And I honestly, and this is really funny, I didn't like Otto very much at the beginning.
Aww.
I personally didn't know if Otto was going to stick. I felt like it was a bit awkward working with Otto at the start. Duder really loved him, but I was like, I don't know how I feel about this. And I wasn't sure. And over time he grew on me too, but he also like just developed a lot as a character in general. It surprises me all the time. I say that often, is that I'm surprised by Otto consistently, because really he's his own dude, he's his own character. And the chat has also had a lot of influence on Otto. I think, I feel like he's a little, like sometimes he needs to touch grass a little bit, and I would say that that's probably chat's fault. But also, chat, they know his love interest, Sylvia, very well. And so that has also shaped a lot of Otto's story, is his behind an NDA burgeoning love with the producer of the Nurse Huckleberry show. So,
wow, that's a really complex story. I love that. But just one more time for those who just arrived, thanks for coming in, and please don't go anywhere. We already heard some hilarious and very wise words from Nurse Huckleberry here, responsible with her husband Duda, who's in chat, for one of the most interesting shows on Twitch right now. So, yes. One other question I had, food. You obviously know how to cook. You really know your food. The few conversations we've had, history of food as well. So where does the love of food come from?
Well, I just grew up in a family of cooks. So both my dad was a chef of a variety of smaller restaurants. He was never like a big chef, but he was the chef at a variety of restaurants. My mom was a line cook for quite some time, and I am very grateful that I had my mom was in a position to be regularly cooking meals for us at home, and so we had regular home cooked dinners. And as a kid, it was just kind of expected that we were gonna participate in, including cooking, and I liked it. I liked it a lot, and I would take cooking classes through the Gifted and Talented Education Program. There was somebody who offered a cooking once a week. They would host a cooking class for kids at their house. And so I learned a bit more technique through that, nothing crazy. But then I started working in restaurants when I was 17, which was like an obvious route, as I had at that point every other adult in my immediate family was also in restaurants. So I went into restaurants and was working in a couple of different casual fine dining spots. And I personally loved baking. And so I would bake a lot. And a lot of the stuff that I cook now still is like things that I ate growing up that my mom or dad would have made. But then also like my taste refined a fair bit, and being in nice restaurants, like, I don't know, it's just, cooking's easy for me. It's not that hard. So like, I think, but I did a lot of like failing before as a kid, and it's a lot easier to fail when you're a kid and it's not your groceries.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a bit lucky in that regard. As an adult, it doesn't feel as good to fail on cooking, but it's a skill that can be practiced just like anything else. But yeah, and then especially with the pandemic, I was I was excited to be cooking more frequently. I'm a person who likes to cook for others. I don't want to cook a big meal just for myself, but I'm happy to cook for others. And a bit selfish. I really like when people say how good the food is, and I'm like, yeah, that's right. Delicious. But I also I don't know, I like feeding people. So
yeah,
Yeah, I'm always impressed how you're. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just gonna say I'm always so impressed about how easy it is for you to multitask while you're cooking. Like, you're chatting, you're doing whatever programming you've planned for your stream, and you're also cooking at the same time. I feel like I can barely like keep track of like what I'm supposed to be doing in the kitchen, let alone doing everything else as well.
yeah, but have you seen my gaming streams? I cannot, with the people who are like playing Elden Ring and they're just having a casual conversation with chat about some like in-depth topic. I'm like, what? How? Do that? I've been cooking for my whole life. I haven't, like, the video games and the talking. Absolutely not. Like, we all have our talents, and it's just are already good at games, and then they come and start streaming on Twitch, and then they have the benefit of being good at games. I just had the benefit of being good at cooking before I started streaming. So, and honestly, for me, I very rarely use a recipe. And part of that's because following a recipe is way more difficult than just making something how you normally make it. And so what I would say is, if you are cooking on stream, if you already have items that you know how to cook without a recipe, or you just glancing at a recipe is fine, cook those things, because it's way easier than trying to follow a book. Like, I don't like cooking off of recipes on stream for that reason. Or I'll look at like the recipe beforehand and get like the general idea of it, and then I'll just make it. But like, I think a lot of people underestimate the chokehold that recipes have on like slowing you down.
Yeah, and let's face it, how much recipe testing goes into a lot of books and magazines? Not that much, because they have to be out so fast. Sometimes you just glance at it and you think, that's never going to work.
Mm-hmm. And especially as somebody who has celiac disease and is gluten-free, the number of times I'll read a recipe and I'm like, that is not no, it's not going to work. And at a certain point, once you've tried and failed enough times, you get similar to being able to read the tone of chat. you get a little intuition on whether or not a recipe is actually going to pan out.
So you're telling me it's not my fault that I'm a bad cook. It's the bad recipes I'm using, right? Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What I would say is master the basics. Absolutely. And I think Maya would agree of mastering the basics. And if you are able to cook every vegetable in 2 or 3 different ways, cook every protein in 2 or 3 different ways, you can cook any dish, really. Like, it's just sautéing. Like they like to put a lot of fancy words and stuff in there. As long as you're not trying to make hollandaise from scratch all the time, you're fine. And even if you do, then you'll be practiced at it. But
that is so true. Yeah, I'm sure most of it is recipes, Elizabeth, 100%. People are always shocked when I tell them, as someone who's worked in this industry, that most cookbooks are not properly recipe tested because it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort.
No, people have consistently asked me to make a cookbook, and I've said no over and over, partly because I don't want to. But because I personally refuse to put out a cookbook that is not tested, because I know that I could cook the recipes in it, but I would want to give that book to somebody who is not a very good cook and ask them to cook the recipes in it and see how they turned out. Because like what's the point of giving your recipes to a chef? They don't need it. Like you want your recipes to be crafted for the people who are most likely going to follow a recipe. And they need more help.
Well, if you ever want someone to do that for you, to do recipe tests, that's literally what I've done hundreds of times. And running a cookery school, I get people who literally can't boil water, and I'm not kidding. I had 80-year-old man who, bless him, his wife sent him to finally learn how to cook. That was an interesting lesson. But we got there because, as you say, you have to understand where that person is in their cookery journey. And absolutely, you're absolutely right. The vast majority of cooking can be done just with some basic skills, and you'll be good. But hey, honestly, I'm here anytime. And
also, I think
I was just gonna say, if you need somebody who has no cooking experience, I'm also here for you.
Appreciate it. I think there's also a certain amount of as adults, we like to either be good at something or be bad at it, but we don't like to practice. And we don't like to admit that we need practice or that a skill that we could be better at something with practice. And I think back to running drills for shooting hoops and basketball when I was a kid and I was on the basketball team. And sometimes you just got to practice chopping stuff. Sometimes you got to just practice. And I remember when I was about 7, my mom was really frustrated because we and I didn't want to just eat scrambled eggs. I wanted to have my eggs over easy like I normally liked them. Cooking scrambled eggs I could do, but I would start cooking eggs and then I would realize that I had to flip them, and I would run and be like, "Mom, can you flip my eggs?" And she was like, "Oh my God, Shelby, at a certain point you have to learn how to flip your own eggs." And so she gave me a small, the egg pan, and put a piece of bread in it. And then she's like, "Practice flipping the bread over, make the bread do a flip in the pan," and getting that motion down. And so literally at 7 years old, I was eventually able to flip my own eggs without breaking them because I literally did a drill and practiced it. And I think enough as adults and just practice things.
That's a really interesting thing about practice. That people don't want to do it. People don't want to admit that they don't want to do it. So I just want to follow up on that, if you don't mind. Are there any other areas you can think of where this applies? Things that we are afraid to practice?
gosh, dancing, singing.
Oh, yeah.
I used to be terrified of doing karaoke. And at one point it's a goal on my channel now for a secondary sub goal. If we hit the first sub goal, the next sub goal is I do karaoke. At first it was a punishment because I really hated singing in front of people. Not necessarily because I felt like my voice was particularly terrible, as I felt that it was something from my youth. My sister would always be really very upset anytime I was singing. She was a deeply embarrassed individual, and I was very embarrassing for her. And so she was very adamant that if noise came out of my mouth, that people would assume it was her. I don't know. She was just very upset. And so she'd rather beat it into me in a physical and metaphysical way, that singing was bad and that I was not good at it. And it took me years to move past that. And especially now, I'm able to sing pretty happily on Twitch. And a bit of that was a change in mindset. And a bit of it is just honestly practice. And I feel like now that I've practiced and actually tried and failed and tried and done better, I've gotten better at singing karaoke. And here's the thing, I don't think that my voice in particular has improved, but singing is not just about your voice. It is about being entertaining. And I would say that my entertainment factor when it comes to doing like karaoke and that kind of stuff has improved. And my willingness to, I'm not expecting it to be good, but I am expecting it to be fun. So I try to have as much fun as I can, regardless of whether the singing is particularly great. Because if I'm no longer trying to be good, I don't have to worry about being bad. And I think that that was something that just came with practice and trial and error. And like, I would say that I'm objectively a better singer than I was because I have more practice with singing. And I'm just more confident about it in general because I've had more practice doing it in front of people. But it is a big, scary thing. I think other things, too, that we can practice as adults that we don't normally practice is like confrontation and bringing up things that we don't want to talk about. Also, cleaning. I think that there's a lot of like skill involved in certain types of like cleaning, and like we don't learn those things unless you were taught them as a child, and learning it as an adult feels like maybe a step backwards, or like you don't feel like you're doing a very good job of being an adult if you don't know how to clean something. And so I think sometimes we let things slip by the wayside because we just don't know how to deal with them, and it feels embarrassing to not know how to deal with them.
Yes.
Yeah, I would.
You go.
Sorry, I'm always talking over everyone. I'm so
No,
sorry.
it's just the lag on Discord. It's fine. Go.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I think even that applies to people who are thinking about streaming for the first time. Like I'm not. I've only been streaming for about a year, but I just remember in the beginning times where just even pressing that go live button was scary because you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, how am I gonna like get people to come and want to hang out with me if I don't even know what I'm doing? And I think just like existing in a place that feels uncomfortable generally over time makes you more comfortable, and just getting out there and doing it I think is important too.
Mm-hmm.
Your turn, Maya. I won't talk over you.
No, it's fine. I completely forgot what I was going to ask because I was listening to what you were saying and sort of thinking back to the conversation we had on here last time, talking that specifically, and how often people are really terrified of streaming, but they want to do it because it's, I guess, some of them find it cool, some of them just want to hang out with their community, but they're still terrified to actually press the button like every time. But they put themselves through this, and eventually, well, hopefully for most of them or all of them, eventually it just becomes a fun thing. That the button is just, yes, I can't wait to press the button because I'm going to hang out with my community again and play the game or sing or, whatever it is. And I saw in chat somebody saying that whenever you're singing belting out karaoke, they're singing along. That's got to feel pretty amazing. Bringing so much joy by just having fun. I know a lot of hard work goes into it, but
yes, no, I know, but honestly, Dieter and I talk a lot about how lucky we are and how fortunate we are to be in a position, because this is not a career path that I ever considered. That I, like growing up, I didn't think I would be in entertainment. It's interesting too, because if you would have asked me when I was 10, I probably would have said that I wanted to be a comedian or to be like I was in love with Robin Williams. I loved just that level of comedy and like Whose Line. I wanted to be on Whose Line so bad. I loved the Amanda Show. I wanted to be on the Amanda Show so bad, have my own version of that. And now I feel like I do. And it's interesting because I feel like, I was also very academic, and I leaned hard into the academic side for a long time. Before streaming, I did a biology degree and was actively like on a research crew and did that kind of stuff, but it never really paid the bills. And I was always bartending or working in a restaurant to cover bills. And while I really do enjoy the sciences, and I love teaching, I really enjoy teaching in general. The stream has like been a way to really tap back in that I was as a kid and get to explore that and to help other people explore that. And I don't know, I just think it's so fun because I've always been a pretty engaging and storyteller. Like I've been told for a lot of my life that I'm a good storyteller. And I guess I never really considered that as being an option for work. And now it is, and that's really cool and fun, and I get to do that on the regular, and it makes me really happy. And my family's cool with it. They're happy with it. They think it's fun. I think the most interesting part to me is how long it took for them to realize that I was actually good at it. In that, like, not just good at it in a, yeah, you're a good storyteller, but good at it in a, no, this is actually like working out kind of way. And especially like, because sometimes I'll have people that I know in real life and I tell them about the stream and they don't really get it. And like, that's fine. I don't expect them to understand it from me just talking about it or showing clips or whatever. And I've had a couple of people who've known that I've done the stream for a long time and they know that it's my full-time job. And I recently had a friend come in and then they were texting me later and they were like, your show is really entertaining. And I was like, yeah. They're like, I had no clue. Like, no, you're like putting on a show. And I'm like, well, I try and explain. But like, if you don't check it out, like, there's no way for you to know. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, it really is fun. It really is like so fun to do the show. And it's fun to watch. And people, I think that's been one of the most interesting things is when people that I know in real life, because like, obviously I don't act like that all the time. I'm not acting like I act on the show right now, but yeah, for them to see that side, I think is something special too.
Explaining Twitch to people who don't use Twitch is so hard. So I'm glad that you finally got people to experience it and understand like your passion and the creativity and everything that goes behind it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you consider explaining Twitch to people and then saying, forget all that, I do this. Because nobody else is doing the same thing that we're doing, not the same way that we're doing it. And it can be definitely a struggle to get, or people just think of Twitch as being a gaming platform, and I'm like, okay, no, I need you to broaden your horizons, open your mind.
Yeah, for
Do
my
you think there's enough? Oh, sorry. Again, I'm gonna shut up. I'm muting. Bye.
no, don't do it. It's just the lag on Discord. I was just going to agree with you, saying it's very difficult. Like, my parents don't have a clue what streaming or content creation is. But so I have to use very weird terms to sort of try and describe that it's an event and, these things. But, I don't think they'll ever check it out or anytime soon, or, have had the need to do so. So, yeah, they're just going to have to be in the dark. And that's such a shame. But yes, Elizabeth, please, what were you saying?
Oh, I was just going to ask just sort of a question. Do you ever feel sort of pigeonholed into like the just chatting category? It would be hard to put your show in a specific category. So it's just a random thought that popped in my head.
I mean, I don't feel pigeonholed by it. I choose to stream in it. I could stream in food and drink, and I would feel pigeonholed in food and drink because it, in my opinion, does not encapsulate what the stream is. Because yes, it is a cooking show, but no, it's not really a cooking show. And food and drink is notoriously small, and I would describe the communities there as being very different from my own. And the expectation of food and drink stream is going to be very different from what you receive on the Nurse Huckleberry show.
Right.
Like, yeah, I do cook, but that's not the focus. Honestly, I think even if they introduce some other categories, I'd probably continue to stay in just chatting because it brings the most diverse group to us. It is the largest category. And so you're going to end up with the most people curious and going around, peeking around in there. Even if there was a comedy section, we appeal to more than just people looking for comedy. We appeal to more than just people looking for food. We appeal to more than just that. So I feel like just chatting is beneficial to us in that it's a very broad category. A lot happens in just chatting, and so many different people can go looking there for all sorts of different content. And I think people are kind of like expecting a bit weirder content out of just chatting. Like the likelihood of it is higher than for other categories, if that makes sense. So I think people are like, I don't know, we'll see what it is. I think people are more willing to embrace different stuff in the just chatting category. There is a higher chance of trolls. But I don't know, I think it's beneficial to us.
Yeah, interesting. That's not something I ever really think about a lot because obviously I play games, so it's easy to pick the category, right? The game you're playing. But when you're doing other more creative things, it seems like it can be a little bit more thinking involved.
Yeah, I mean, there is a special events category, which I suppose I could use when I do special events, but I'm just chatting so frequently, and we do our special events pretty consistently. So I think a certain amount of it is strategic in like we love the show and we want people to watch and we want it to be sustainable, so we need to have some viewers. And some of it is also, I don't know, we've just made a home in just chatting, and it seems like a silly idea to leave anytime soon. Yeah, unless something else comes up that serves us better, but right now not so much. And on my other channel, I do stream in other categories. So the other interesting thing is even when I'm streaming in just chatting on that channel, I get new people coming in, and it offers like I get the benefit of streaming in other categories on the second channel and still converting those people to followers of the main channel. So I do get kind of broader reach, but we also have pretty broad reach in the people we raid and who raids us, because when you relegate yourself to a single channel, oh my God, my dog is going crazy. I don't know if you can hear that. Jeez. When you relegate yourself to a single game, you can kind of get pigeonholed in that game more so. Whereas for us, it's not just chatting streamers who are raiding us. We get raids from all sorts of different people, and we raid all sorts of different people. Sometimes being somebody without a defined show that's outside of the typical defines of Twitch makes it to where we're kind of a wild card and anyone can come and check it out.
Yeah, I like that. Thanks.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So, if that's cool, what's your view on Twitch's ongoing attempts to regulate things like sexual content, hate speech on its platform? I don't want to put you on the spot because this can be tricky, and there's a very good reason why you keep politics off your stream. But since you're here with us, I wanted to ask. Also, the whole sexual content thing is inevitably bound up with female streamers, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. But hey, with 3 women streamers here, I feel like it's okay to go there. Is Twitch going about regulating this stuff in the right way? With your experience, do you have a sense of where we might end up?
Well, having been on Twitch for a while, when I first joined Twitch, I would describe it as being kind of like when it was still the Wild West. It wasn't just on TV, but when I joined Twitch, the just chatting category hadn't been created yet. It was still IRL, and I streamed in the IRL. And it was not great. It has always been difficult to be a woman on the internet, but it has improved. And some of that specifically was you get a lot of hate from guys being upset that you were a conventionally attractive woman on the internet. They didn't like that because they felt like you were stealing viewership from them. And you, especially at the time, this was before like the hot tubs category had been made. And there was a lot of girls who were just titty streamers, and they'd wear a bra or a bikini and they'd be sitting and playing video games. And then Twitch said, hey, your attire has to be appropriate to the setting. So if you're at the beach, you can wear a bikini, but you can't just be wearing a bikini in your house, right? And then when they made the pools and hot tubs category, I really appreciated it because it kind of relegated that whole crew of people who were just rude to women. They had a better spot to be rude in where it was more expected. There is a certain amount of you can't sit around in a bikini on Twitch and think that everyone is going to, like hot tub streamers know what they're doing and they know the risks associated, and they have like a risk benefit analysis of their personal choice that like if I stream in a bikini, I am more likely to get rude people, right? But it kind of helped because it put that in the corner, and I always appreciate it because I'm like, I personally don't want to make that kind of content. I've never made that kind of content, and I'm glad that they have a defined spot for them to do it in now because I get less hate in general. Like, like instead of, and again, like they have way stricter mods. They have way stricter everything. I can have things be much more chill on my channel because I don't have to deal with that as consistently. And like, sure, they might be making a lot of money, but like, we're not competing for the same audience because the people who want to come and hear me talk about fish are not the same people, potentially, that want to sit and watch a girl bounce on a yoga ball in a bikini for 3 hours. Like, like I would kind of hope that those are different audiences, to a certain extent. So I've never been jealous. I've never been assuming that they're stealing my audience, because it's probably not my audience. They don't care about my content. They want to watch a girl in a bikini, and that's fine. And I think I would say that the sexual themes, I do definitely don't think it's a terrible idea. I do think obviously that women are over enforced, and a big part of that is because sometimes the people who are doing the moderation for Twitch are not from the US and do not have the same culture, modesty culture can differ. And so what they consider inappropriate might not be considered inappropriate given the context somewhere else. And I think that is very frustrating. I think that if you are from the US, you should be moderated by somebody coming from a US audience. I don't think it's fair to have people in the US being moderated from significantly more conservative cultures, because especially with context being important, with like a joke that's said or something, like if somebody was moderating an Aussie versus an American, the language is going to be different, right?
Yeah.
And what's the acceptable language in that culture is going to be different. Just like I wouldn't want to mod somebody, I wouldn't want to be moderating for someone in Singapore, right? So I don't feel like I could accurately be making decisions about interactions based on that. And then when it comes to the like, I don't know, like the labeling and stuff, I think Twitch has consistently just done a bad job at communicating changes, and they are in general not very good at having easy to understand language. And I think another huge part of it, this is gonna be mind-blowing, streamers don't like to read. And they're bad at
What?
it. And I think because there's a lot, like, I think Twitch needs to have the legal version, and then I think they need to have a here's what you need to know version, because there is a lot that gets lost in the making someone read. Which needs to be announcing these things with a short video, with obvious examples, with clearer definitions, because people on the internet are in general just, they tend to be dumb, okay? And loud, dumb and loud. And like, wow, there are smart people here too, right? Because somebody had to make all this stuff. Okay, there's smart people here too. But when when you're teaching, you got to find the lowest common denominator, target that group to make sure that everyone learns, especially when you're setting rules for things. Like, I know that streamers don't like to read stuff. If you've been in a collab with me, you've probably seen that I hide a question in there to make sure you read all the information about the collab, right? Because I know that they don't read stuff, and I don't want to work with people who won't read things because it's a waste of my time, but also because I see all the things that happen on Twitch because people just can't read. It drives me insane. It drives me crazy. Anyways, so I think that Twitch is bad at communicating it, and I do think that sometimes they will implement policies that are a bit tone deaf, or maybe like, I don't know. I don't think they ask enough people about things before they roll them out sometimes. And yeah, they need more discussing, or they just roll things out. And also, then there's the other side of it where sometimes they just don't take action for forever. They're just not consistent with how they take action on things. And I think it causes a lot of stress. And there's also the bigger a streamer is, the less likely that the rules actually apply to them. And whether that's true or not, Twitch needs to do a better job of enforcing consistently if they're going to be putting these things in place. And it can be really frustrating because I got banned one time for I was wearing a Playboy bunny costume. I was cooking rabbit. Really hilarious. And I had like fishnets on, as they were not opaque. You could see through. I got caught by the rule, right? This was 3 years ago. And it was really frustrating because I didn't just get a ban. I got taken down midstream.
Oh,
They decided that it was so egregious, which it wasn't. In reality, it was a relatively modest Playboy bunny costume. But they took me down midstream, and like, and it was like just like a few days before TwitchCon, so like I got locked out of my account and everything, and I was freaking out about whether or not I was even gonna be able to go to TwitchCon because it was like literally the day before. And then to add salt to the wound, right? So we go to TwitchCon that week, and not even 3 days later, they have Megan Thee Stallion twerking on stage, more revealing bodysuit than what I had been wearing on the front page of Twitch. And I was like, so you can have thousands and thousands and thousands of people watch this, but for me to do I think I probably had like 100 viewers at the time. Like you're gonna severely punish me, but you're gonna literally put her on a stage on the front page of the platform, and we're wearing the same outfit. So that was really frustrating. And as somebody who's experienced that, like I do think that they do a bad job of being consistent across the board with enforcing things.
I gotta say, you are a great commentator on all this stuff. You make it look so easy to talk about these things when we all know that it isn't easy. So thank you sincerely for being so thoughtful and articulate with these responses. I wasn't sure I should ask, but I'm so glad I did. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you're also very like honest and just open about it. Like I don't think what you're saying is bullshit. I mean that in like a genuine way, but it's cool to hear someone who's not afraid to share their opinion.
Yeah, well, I've always been that way, so that's good. But no, and I think I don't know, Twitch does, but I think like I personally am not a huge fan of Clancy. I've had like my chat knows I have opinions that I won't necessarily blast out because of fear of repercussions, which I think that should tell you enough. That I wouldn't necessarily share all of my opinions, particularly widespread, because I worry about those kind of things coming back from you, because you never know who's listening and you never know who's watching, and staff talk. So,
yeah,
but yeah, and then I know they just put out a new content classification label for the political stuff, and I feel like that is a prime example of Twitch not doing a very good job of communicating, and people being bad at reading both. I feel like they really both, because like people will read one part and they don't take it into context, and they don't read, like they see the tweet with like one little thing and they just assume that that's all it is. And I don't think that people are very good at doing their own research and actually looking and following through to see if things are in fact as they seem or not. But I think that one in particular, because a lot of people were very upset at the idea of, especially somebody who's queer, LGBTQ plus, feeling like they cannot share their lived experiences because it's being labeled as a sensitive issue on Twitch. And that wasn't the case ever. Twitch did clear up their language around it, but I did not think that the initial language seemed particularly prohibitive towards it. I felt, in my opinion, it was relatively clear that it was things that if this is the focus of your conversation, then you would need a label for it. But people on Twitter did not agree with me. They did not really read the whole thing. And so Twitch had to go and make their language really obvious. And it's had to happen every time. So I don't know why they don't just start with that. Like, it's crazy to me that they haven't just started with very obvious, blatant, here's the legal bit, here is exactly what we want, here is who it applies to specifically. And some of that's going to come with learning feedback. But at a certain point, we got to figure out where we're starting with.
Yeah. Well, I am aware that we are out of time, so sadly, but that I know the 2 hours went by so fast, but obviously a huge thank you for making the time to talk to us. That was really awesome. A couple of hours, and hopefully everyone here enjoyed it. Thank you so much for joining, especially obviously nurses community. Nice to meet you, everyone. Come again. But no, I really appreciate that. It's been a wonderful couple of hours, and thank you for the shout outs. And also thank you to Elizabeth. This is completely her doing this venture. I just joined her and we started doing these podcasts, and they've just been so much fun, and we get to do this amazing stuff like talking to Nurse Huckleberry. So thank you, ladies. You are wonderful.
Well,
Thank
so
you,
much
Maya.
for
Don't
having
undersell
me.
yourself.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I don't want to keep anyone too long, but yeah, thank you. And I hope you have a wonderful Monday. You still guys have the afternoon ahead of you. For me, it's bedtime almost.
We do.
Yeah, I need a nap.
Yeah, I was going to say, just going to go back to sleep.
I probably should go back to sleep for a little bit. Oh,
Um,
but thank you so much. This was really enjoyable, and I feel like it was funny because I did one podcast with Velvet Van Helga a little bit ago, and I was so like, nobody ever invites me to these things, and I really appreciate it because I like talking, especially on this kind of stuff, and especially with a couple of fantastic women. It's nice, and you guys have been absolutely delightful hosts, so thank you so much for having me. And thanks to the chat, for everybody from my chat who came today. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for coming. I feel that support. It means a whole lot.
Thank you. And I'm just going to send the stream over to Nightinator. She's a wonderful, just incredibly fun UK streamer games, and it's all about Cozy Monday today. And she's got wonderful hair as well. So let's say hello to her. And thank you very much, everyone. And bye.
Bye.